It's me again, and Scott. He's here. Everyone liked it when we did a plug and you actually smiled in it. You want to hit us with another smile, Scott?
Oh, gosh. You know what? I've spent so long with really terrible teeth that I'm not comfortable smiling, but after several $100,000, I am comfortable sort of smiling. This actually is me smiling, Jess.
This is as good as it gets, guys. Subscribe to the Raging Moderates YouTube channel, please.
Welcome to Raging Moderates. I'm Scott Galloway.
And I'm Jessica Tarlov.
Trump is once again flirting with the idea of a third term, something the Constitution flatly forbids. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One, he said he'd love to do it, bragged about having his best numbers ever, and refused to rule out a 2028 run. It's the latest in a string of comments and rumors, often stoked by Steve Bannon, hinting that Trump and his allies might try to test the limits of the 22nd Amendment. Whether he means it or not, keeping that idea alive serves a purpose. It keeps him from looking like a lame duck and reminds both his base and his rivals that his grip on the GOP isn't loosening anytime soon. Trump also teased a few possible successors for 2028, suggesting Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio could be contenders. Let's watch.
Well, I don't have to get into that, but we have one of them standing right here. We have J.D., obviously. The Vice President is great. I think Marco's great. I think, I'm not sure if anybody would run against us. I think if they ever formed a group, it would be unstoppable. I really do. I believe that. I would love to do it. I have my best numbers ever. It's very terrible. I have my best numbers. If you read it, am I not ruling it out? You'll have to tell me. All I can tell you is that we have a great group of people, which they don't.
I know Marco Rubio is getting his, his pat on the head there, which he's excited about, that Trump is, putting him in the presidential, vice presidential conversation. But he also has to stand there, this principled conservative, right, that opposed Trump with every fiber of his being in 2016. He has to stand next to him as this guy taunts us with the idea of a third term, which is blatantly unconstitutional. When you see like someone's soul leave their body, and I mean, that used to happen much more regularly. So I guess that there are a few souls that just have not come back into the corporal structure of these guys that are serving in the administration. But, I want to talk about 2028 in terms of J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, but they are always testing us and trying to make us more comfortable with these wildly illegal, unconstitutional things that they're going to do. They do it, with sending troops into our cities. They're just trying to prime us for what might happen, sending poll watchers out to California, which isn't even having a federal election. They have no business having anything to do with something that a state amendment. They're going to send to New Jersey, to one district that is heavily weighted Latino. Shocker. They're not doing it to Virginia, though, because Virginia has a Republican governor in charge there. They are testing us and pushing as many buttons as possible. And I do think that it's important to consider that when Steve Bannon is talking about how Trump is going to be there on the ballot in 2028, he's talking to The Economist.
Well, he's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28.
He's not talking to Alex Jones, right, in some depths of the internet, which we would never be paying attention to. He's out there in polite society talking about those things. And it really is a new frontier, one which I think is important for us to be in, that we're paying attention to what key advisors to Trump and the brains behind the operation, certainly in the pinky and the brain sense, are saying. But they're doing it in places at conferences that you would go and speak at, or when I get older and more important, that I would go and speak at. And that's something very different.
The reason I'm not that triggered by this is biology is undefeated. And the reason why I said Biden shouldn't run again wasn't because of anything other than his age. And if the president were to run again, he would be an 82 or 83-year-old obese man. And if you look at actuarial tables, that means every year there's like a 1 in 4 or 1 in 8 chance he dies. And death is not just a switch. You become debilitated. It's very unlikely that he will not continue to show increasing signs of aging, dementia, whatever you want to call it, cognitive decline. From the age of about 40 or 45, your prefrontal cortex shrinks, something like 1% a year. I mean, as someone who used to be able to do crazy amount of math in his head on the spot just 10 years ago, and now I have one of those ridiculous things that has Monday all my pills, and I shake them out, and I feel like I'm 110 fucking years old. Anyway, I don't even buy green bananas anymore, Jess. I think biology is going to take care of that problem. What is a bigger issue is that he will probably still have a massive hold on the party and be the kingmaker and get to sort of anoint who he thinks. And you said something watching Marco Rubio or Secretary.
Secretary.
Yeah, excuse me. That's right. Secretary Rubio's soul leave his body. That means you saw nothing. I have never been able to figure out what Senator Rubio stands for other than anything he believes will get him elected in Iowa, get him another straw poll. He was big on immigration until he was appointed to a bipartisan committee to talk about or address immigration 20 years ago. And when he read a poll that said, we want immigration as an issue to fight on for the far right, he went AWOL. He is not any more concerned with the well-being of America beyond the belief that he should be president someday. He has absolutely no principles. Watching him sit there on the couch as we insulted the leader right now of the free world, quite frankly, if the free world is a function of the fight, Zelensky, and to see him literally shrinking as the president insults an ally and basically urinates on every principle of post-World War II state of the world that Marco Rubio or Secretary Rubio supposedly ascribed to, just watching him sit there and not say anything and not do anything and not comment on it. He's at least a guy like Vance. I think he has principles and beliefs that he would stay true to. Unfortunately, the far right weird, I would argue, techno-libertarian. The person that'll get the most attention if Vance gets a nod is going to be someone who's managed to stay out of the news, and that's Peter Thiel. And this guy, Peter Thiel is a really interesting guy, and a lot of his beliefs and a lot of his control over Vance, and when people look at how Vance came to power and what it represents in terms of Thiel's control over him, is going to become an increasingly big story as we start to think of who shapes up here. I hope that it's Vance Rubio, because I think a Newsom Klobuchar or a Pritzker, Shapiro, I think they would just clean the floor with them. But again, I'm terrible at these predictions. What do you make of all this? My question for Steve Bannon, I can't believe no reporter has asked this question, is what other constitutional amendments do you think are malleable at this point as someone who considers yourself a constitutionalist?
I think you would probably say everything's up for grabs, right? I mean, if birthright citizenship can be undone, and it's one of the first executive orders that they signed, where does it end? And he said also that Donald Trump was a divine being, I think, or was
divine president.
Yeah. So there's stuff going on there that I think we can't necessarily unpack. Totally right on Peter Thiel, which is why he was the subject of South Park in the last episode.
Oh, was he? I didn't see that.
Oh, it was very funny. Good progression in Satan's pregnancy. And
I love that show, and I don't even watch it that much, and I love it.
They're doing it right.
Those guys are unafraid.
No, they totally are, and they got paid, and it's good to see actually the business sense outweighing the fear of whatever the administration might rot or might wreak on them. What's the right way to say that? They've invested the money in a product that they know is going to sell and do well versus kowtowing to an administration that it can't be happy about the fact that they are literally showing the president with a micro penis knocking up Satan, and then in the last episode, he is pleasuring himself. He tries with a tweezer, and then I think he ends up getting there with chopsticks. Like that's where we are in the world of satire in terms of the administration. But anyway, Peter Thiel is a main character in the last episode. You should check it out. His obsession with the Antichrist, and it's all about questioning Christianity right now, or the way that the right is doing Christianity. Like they have Jesus as a character, and he's looking at them like, I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, my concern about the third term stuff, I think more that he won't leave versus he's going to be on the ballot and that it is going to be a struggle to get him actually out of power. But I struggle with how we should be talking about it, because you're right. Like, they just want us to be in an outrage cycle constantly about this and not talk about the real issues. And last week on The Five, we were talking about the ballroom, which is another outrage topic, even though it is a pay-for-play scheme, again, as usual with this administration. But I said, I'm going to choose to talk about what's going on with our farmers, especially our cattle ranchers, with bringing in Argentinian beef, talk about the government shutdown, talk about your inflation rate. Like, that's how you win an election, not saying, oh, Donald Trump wants to be a dictator and he's never going to leave the White House. So, like, where do you think the push and pull is there in terms of what we should be focusing on in terms of pushing back on the administration in a way that actually resonates with voters who aren't already exercised over Donald Trump's authoritarian streak?
Oh, one word: Epstein. This
Your
shouldn't
guy.
be
Third most powerful person in the world, right?
I believe
Posthumously?
that. Trump, then she, then Epstein is closing down Congress. The speaker is excusing Congress. He's my thesis here is that there's a group of 5 people in a room armed with AI, and they monitor the press. As soon as Epstein starts creeping back into it, they come up with 50 different ideas to divert their attention, from 100% tariffs on China, which they have no intention of putting forward, or threats to invade Canada, or whatever it might be. Just keep Epstein out of there as soon as he starts creeping back, or let's tear down the East Wing. And I think if Democrats were smarter, they would no longer be referring to it as the East Wing. And just as we have a Lincoln bedroom, they should be referring to the East Wing from this point forward as the Epstein ballroom. Because let's be honest, this and everything else is an attempt to keep that one word out of the news cycle: Epstein. Let me repeat: Epstein. Oh, wait, let's bring it back to Epstein. There's something in these files that makes him look really bad, and he will do anything to, including closing down Congress, to avoid these files coming out. So does he want a ballroom? Yes. The other frightening thing about this, and by the way, I don't give a shit what the White House. I've been to the White House. Kara Swisher took me there. It was very intimidating. There's so much firepower there. You can't relax. There's so many young people with vests and submachine guns. I remember thinking, I would not want to live here. I think it's choppy. I think it's an old house. I was not inspired by it. So him wanting to renovate it or build another wing, who the fuck cares? The thing that's scary here is that I won't buy a new microwave if I'm renting a place, because I'm planning to leave.
Yeah.
Him doing this, engaging in a construction project, which will take, if it's supposed to take 12 months, it's going to take at least 24. That means he's not planning on leaving. And the other thing about all of this that on a meta level is more upsetting is that I hate the fact that we're normalizing things that should not be normalized. We've normalized mass shootings. There's been 2 a day or 1 every other day. That shit doesn't even get news anymore, because mass shootings have not been normalized in the UK. They have been normalized in the US. We have normalized a massed secret police force terrorizing neighborhoods and treating people with a total lack of dignity. We have normalized sending people to other countries, to black sites. We have normalized monetizing healthcare, monetizing the government. You want a pardon? No problem. We'll let you out of prison as long as you carry my kids' meme coin and make me wealthier. We have normalized an orgy of corruption. We have normalized corruption on a scale we've never seen. We have normalized not having co-equal branches of government. And we're now normalizing the notion that the president aided and abetted and was very close to a pedophile. That shit's being normalized now. So the White House, the one thing I will give it is those images of the East Wing being torn down are literally the mother of all visual metaphors. I feel like that image, other than Xi, Modi, and Putin laughing, like a fraternity reunion, I think the image of the year right now is the East Wing being torn down. But it's the normalization of what should not be acceptable in our society that is I find so upsetting. Your closing thoughts here, Jess. You get the last word.
I don't want to be boring, but I agree are my last words. I think also that imagery, while federal workers are not being paid and the government is shut down, finds a way to get his construction project done. But making sure that kids have SNAP benefits is beyond the pale. It's a pretty good metaphor for how this administration thinks about themselves versus the 330 Americans that they're supposed to be taking care of. So
there you go. All right. Thanks, Jess.